Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Special Edition. If you're new to this channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. Be sure to share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel on future shows. So I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and joining me is Ranty Flat Earth. So I'll say a big warm hello to Ranty. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. You?
Very well indeed. So we both had a very exciting morning. You because you've gone out and captured things, and me because I've got to look at them. So I'm very privileged to know what we're about to see. And you've worked very hard on compiling it, and then I've sent you out, which is why we're late, to go and get a tape measure of a wall, which I'm sure will become a bit clearer as we go on. But do you want to basically start by telling us a bit of background to your original observation of Barrow in Furness and the distances, and then move on to what you've done today? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I mean, I can start with the early stuff.
Well, no, just tell us, just verbally, just tell us what it was you've done. Just so if this was viewed by somebody who knew nothing about what we'd done to date, you just gave a couple of minutes just to say where we're at, if you know what I mean.
Okay, well, I basically went a little bit further away today to look at Barrow in Furness. I went to a distance of 20.4 miles away, so that's another 2.5 miles or so, roughly further than what I'd got the 1 foot observation from before. I went with the intention of just seeing how much of the buildings we could see. I didn't expect to see all of the buildings, and I certainly didn't expect to understand things more, such as compression and how they work at distance. Following on from yesterday's discoveries, really.
Cool. So what's the total distance now? So the original one was about 15 to 18 miles. What's this one?
The original distance was 18 miles. I've then been filming roughly from about 18.3 for the last couple of weeks or so. I then moved further down the promenade, and I went to a distance of 20.4 miles today.
Cool. So where are we going to start?
Start with yesterday's compression analysis, if you like.
Excellent. So while you're bringing that up, we're detailing the flat Earth obstruction. So the reason why when things shrink into the distance, you can have them obscured. And in essence, this is to compare and contrast to what the globers say is their obstruction, the bulge. But this is what we're investigating. So if you can bear in mind that what Ranty's detailing is the whys and wherefores of what causes obstruction. And in this instance, we're going to go to compression. So once Ranty's got his screen up, I'll present him and he'll
Am
talk
I
you
not
through.
presenting? I thought I had been.
No. You let me know when you're ready and I'll stick you up. But yeah, so compression, but we're talking in comparison to things that obscure other things. So I'll just stick Ranty's screen up. Hopefully you can all see that nice and clearly.
Okay, so essentially, this was made on your show yesterday. This image. What I had done was taken 2 elevation images of a video of this boat. So the top image here was from an elevation of about 1/2 foot, and this lower image was from an elevation of approximately 40 feet. So from the higher observation, clearly we can see right down to the bow, with the orange stripe running underneath the stellar line. However, from the 1/2 foot observation as well, we also can see all of the stellar line. Let me zoom in and you can see what I'm saying. But you can see a very clear orange line running underneath it. Now, this isn't refraction, this isn't mirroring, because quite often we'll see things mirrored. So we would have another orange line above it, and it would be reflecting back. But because there's no other orange line apart from the bow, the only orange line underneath the stellar line has to be the bow. So what we figured was that this is all of the boat except the bottom.
We've lost your audio, Ranty. You might come unplugged.
Hello?
There we go.
Yeah. So where did you get me to?
We've got all of the boat.
So yes, we do have all of the boat, except it's squished on this lower image from 1/2 foot. So what I did was on your show yesterday, I cropped out the top part of this boat from the 1/2 foot observation, and this is it here, and I placed it next to the 30-foot observation. And as you can see, there's very little, if any, discrepancy with the widths and heights. They all seem to be very similar and hardly suffering any of this compression. But once you go down to the narrow observations here, the bow and everything, it all gets really compressed. So it got me thinking, well, if this is the effect over such a short distance, I think the distance was around about 7 miles, 7.5 miles, what would happen over distances of 15, 20 miles? Well, clearly a lot of that compression would show as indistinguishable between that and the perceived horizon, and yet anything out of that zone would appear in its entirety, just like these two comparisons here, but the lower part would all be squished. So essentially I went today and I had a look at Barrow and Furnace again from 20.4 miles away. So I'm going to show you the video now. This is me, 20.4 miles away. I'm not going to bother playing the entire video, but I'll skip through just showing you roughly where I was. I will upload it to my channel later. I then lower my camera down onto a tripod that is set to, I think, 13 inches. But it buries into the sand, so it gets me down to approximately a foot. When we play through it, hopefully I'll zoom in a moment. You can start to see the buildings now appearing here. And they're very thin, but clearly identifiable. I'll just hopefully stop it on a frame that looks all right. So you can see, maybe with that wave in the foreground. But anyway, they're definitely the buildings of Barrow. What I did, I also got some still shots from this location too. Now, it was my opinion that we were seeing all of this, right? And when I showed it to you before, we were debating whether or not it was all of them, and then we figured out that if these are suffering the compression as with the boat was yesterday, how would we be able to identify that and work out whether or not we'd see it from the higher elevation? Well, fortunately, I did do a higher observation. So I'll show you that higher observation. And this is this one here. So I went in a direct line below the steps. Above the steps, but in a direct line of sight to the same buildings. So this is the observation from 30 feet in elevation. Clearly, we can see things very distinguished. You know what you're looking at. You can see these buildings. You can say, yep, okay, I can identify this and I can identify that. I try and hold my camera out to show you the steps where I'd taken the images before, which is right there. And so that I was in a direct line of sight with the lower observation. And this is the best bit. I can't believe to tell you how good this was actually to figure this out. This is an image taken from the lower part, and this is an image taken from the higher part. So I'm just going to I'm going to open it now and show you exactly what I did. I'm going to open it in paint.net. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the other one as well. Actually, I'll open up the two, so the higher and the lower observation. So open with paint.net. Open with paint.net. Right, there we go. So now we have the two images. I've opened the same one up again, never mind. Let's crop this through. Take that out there. I'll do it to there. Image crop to selection. I'll just rotate it slightly. Bear with me whilst I get this all organized, because this is how I did it with you. So I don't want to say that I'm cheating anybody with what we're doing. And then we'll open this one with paint.net. And now I'm going to crop this one out ready. So I'm going to crop this one out ready, right? image crop to selection. Right. And on this image, what we're going to do, we're going to adjust it. We're going to do the resizing of it. We're going to take out the aspect ratio, and we're going to change the height, not the width, because we noticed in yesterday's images the width wasn't affected, it was just the height. So if I change that to 539, that will be half the size. I'm going to squash it like so. So that's from the higher image. And this is the lower image. So we're going to copy that. And then we're going to paste it in here. So now we're essentially doing the, oh, what's going on there? Has that gone like that? Just bear with me. Let's figure this out, what's gone on. Image, resize, let's do it by 20%. Place it over here. Okay. Right, so this is on the hop now because we're sort of caught out. What would you say? It needs doubling, Nath? Would you agree?
Well, what I was going to say was, I mean, you're showing the method that you've done it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've still got the ones you did with me already,
I have, yeah.
you just use those. So people have now seen the methodology that you did with me, and you've just done exactly the same. But rather than actually doing it on the fly, if you can just use the original ones that you had.
Okay. Well, there's just a very rough approximation of the top and the lower. As you can see, they are essentially identical. Here's the presentation. So this was an image taken from the water, so you can see the wave in the foreground. This is the image that I did the same thing from compress the top image, and when I do the contrasts on it and I sort of like move in, you can see that the comparison is almost identical. What is really, really, really interesting is this part. If I've still got it on this, have I got it in here? No, I might need to find it in the 27th of June. I think it's in here, Nate. Just one sec. Bear with me because I had the numbers written on it.
That's okay. While you're doing that, I'll just summarise your point. So what Rantys done is he's taken an image from 30 feet and then taken an identical image from a foot. And then he's noticed that the lower observation seems to be very compressed, squashed. So he's then cropped out the image of the same thing from 30 feet and then overlaid it on the image that's from 1 foot, but halved the vertical scale. So he squashed it by, you know, a factor of 50% or whatever the phraseology would be, but he squashed it in half, in a half scale. So that's essentially what he's done.
Sorry, yeah. Could I just intersect with the metabunk stuff? This is where they've hidden the compression, as well as obviously we've got the angular size reduction, but the compression distance has been hidden in the Metabunk's formula. If you put the distance of 20.4 miles with a viewer height of 1 foot, the hidden is 245 feet, right? But yeah, if I increase that viewer height to 30 feet, the hidden is 125 feet, right? So 125 or 245. Let me put that onto the image so that you can see what we're talking about. Right, open this with paint.net again. And then I'm going to put the numbers in, and you tell me, this is definitely been co-opted. We have the top image, which was seen from the very small and lower elevation. Sorry, the high elevation is 125 feet. So let me increase the height on, that's 96. So 125 feet for the top one curved, the bottom one, 245 feet. Now then.
So these are the Metabunk hidden values. So these are actual size or not including perspective, however you want to phrase it. an orthographic representation in mathematics of how much they say should be hidden in the metabunk calculation. And what do you notice? When you've reduced the height by the factor of the compression that you actually see, it matches the maths with absolute sizes.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the top image, if I just sorry, just gonna hopefully be able to crop this out so that the audience can see. I resize it so that it'll fill up the screen. Right, so the top image, like I said, is from an elevation higher up at 30 feet, and the bottom image is taken from from 1 foot. And the curve, this is the curve calcs. So when I reduce in height and compress the height of the top one, what do you know? They match up perfectly. The images are almost a mirror image of one another. Absolutely, almost a mirror image. And this is what we're saying. We're saying that the compression has made it appear that we're losing part of the buildings, but we're not. We're seeing all of the buildings because this image at the top, which was taken from the higher elevation, has just been compressed downwards, crumpled. And what do you know? It matches the bottom image. And it also matches the curve calcs for the percentage of compression.
So yeah, so the compression factor has been obviously looked into, observed, and then worked in by virtue of ignoring perspective, as always. But in terms of the proportional representation that the maths gives you, it does in some way match what you can observe. But in reality, unless you have this back-to-back comparison to say, well, 30 feet higher, the thing is essentially the same exact view, but just less squashed. It's been, you know, stretched by a factor of 100% if you want to look at it the other way round. So the top image is essentially a 30 feet observation, which, even if you go by the curve calcs, just to get this out of the way for any globehead commenters, so the buildings on the right hand side, I'll move my mouse over it just so I can, these buildings would all be long gone behind the curve of the Earth based on the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective emitting curve calculator. So none of this is going to ever be global proof of anything because it should all be long gone. And in the later show today, maybe at 3 PM UK time, we'll go through in the debate some of the counter side of this, which is what they call the actual obstruction, the thing that is causing the buildings on the bottom to be half the height that they should be. And of course, any obstruction or missing bits of building is always classed as curvature, being obstructed by a bulge in the near foreground. But yeah, I mean, I think this is absolutely blistering evidence, Ranty, I've got to say it.
It's a shame I haven't had much time to put the presentation together because we've done it on the hop today. But like we've found out recently, as soon as we put something out that is really, really relevant, we get it out there and other people take up that mantle. We've had people like Thrive and Survive and just a lot of people looking into the stuff that we've been talking about. So hopefully they may be able to apply this process to some observations they have and see that this is exactly what they've done. The compression has made the top image look identical to the bottom image when you reduce it by a factor of half, essentially the curve calcs.
Right on. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we round out in terms of this particular optical effect on a flat plane, which is what we're observing?
Perhaps not the optical effect, but what I will show you is this chimney here, which is 238 feet tall, evidenced in both images, but this chimney wouldn't even be seen on the curve calcs. 245 feet would be hidden, apparently, from 1 foot at a distance of 20.4 miles. So that being the tallest building in this entire lower image, all of the buildings beneath that, again, should not be seen on a ball sphere Earth model. Shouldn't be seen.
Absolutely superb, Ranty.
It's not a one-off. I see this every time I go.
Cool. Thank you very much for sharing with us.
No worries.
Pleasure having you here, as always.
Good to be here.
And I'll also add a little disclaimer after thanking Ranty one last time. Maybe we'll round out. But yes, when Ranty says that these calculations you wouldn't see this based on a sphere. We are still talking about the perspective omitting calculations, and ultimately speaking, we're going to be covering the actual genuine obstruction that you would see using this footage later on today at, as I say, 3 p.m. UK time. So we'll be comparing it to actual reality as opposed to the curve calculator model based on the presupposition of R and the omission of perspective, which is our main point at the moment. So one last time, I'll say a big thank you to Ranty for joining us on this Flat Earth Debate Special Edition. Thank you very much, Ranty.
Thank you, myself. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and listening.
Yes, indeedy. I'll also say a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this discussion. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do. But if you liked it, be sure to subscribe if you've not done so already, and maybe share the show with a friend. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!